Oh, traders, just going to go through the Euro USD day trading strategy results for the week of September 13th to September 17th. This was a little bit better week. There was a few things I wanted to touch on, so I'm going to try to include a video now in these strategy results that I publish each week, just to provide a little bit of insight on things that I noticed. So one of the main things that we're seeing going on right now is this major drop in volatility. So these would be probably about weeks, and we're going over 12 months. So we can just see this drop off in overall volatility from about a year ago down to where we are now. So we're about half of where we were about a year ago. And we can start to see this a little bit in the results. So I just say this is important to be aware of, to help assess, like, are you trading well, or is it just market conditions, or are you trading poorly? And so we can see January, really pumping out some great returns through January, February, March, April, May, June. And then July tapers off back a little bit, but we're not much out of January. But August, we see this big drop off. And September is probably going to be, around this area, I would suspect, too. And that kind of makes sense. We're looking at about half of what we were making in most of these other months. So May, June, pretty big months. But for the rest, they're all just kind of around that 60, 70 R mark. And we're, right around half of that, which makes sense when we look at this. We're just going to see less opportunities when the price is moving 50 pips a day. And if we're only trading 2 hours, we might only see 15, 20, 30 pips of movement during that 2 hours, compared to when, a year ago at the beginning of the year, we were moving up 70, 75 pips in a day. So, we've seen this drop off, and that's important to be aware. So don't be too hard on yourself if you're not seeing a lot of patterns right now. I publish these charts each day, and you can see, for the most part, the number of trades has dropped off significantly the last month or two. This month was about 13, and I think the prior month was only like 6, or the prior week was only like 6 or 7 trades in the whole week, and that's okay. That's going to happen sometimes, but overall, by waiting for the good patterns, we can still have a decent week. So here we can see the win rate a little bit lower than usual. Lately, they've been up in that 65, 70%. Reward to risk right around where we want it, 2.5 to 1, or a little bit higher even, and got out of a couple losers a bit early. So I don't know why there's a 2.5 in there. That was a mistake, writing that one in there. But yeah, we're seeing that reward to risk still pretty solid. Rounded tops still the major contributor to the profit most weeks. Double pumps also good, double pump variations. Snapbacks, haven't seen as many of those lately, and that's probably due to lower movement, because snapbacks require that really strong movement. You want to see that sharp price move, sharp pullback, sharp move back in the trending direction. Since we're not having really strong trends right now, for the most part, it's a little bit choppier price action, you're going to see less of those patterns. So just, again, something to be aware of. A lot of days like this where you just kind of have one really good opportunity, and this was one of those opportunities. So like I said, I mentioned a couple weeks back, I'm starting now around the 6:30 mark. I used to start at 6, and I just don't get to bed early enough, and I was feeling pretty tired, so we're pushing this back out till 6:30. And my days shortened up a little bit, so I'm mostly trading about 6:30 to about 8. Some days I can go till 8:30, but some other days I have a trainer that I go to, so it's, a lot of days are kind of an hour and a half. And in this kind of low volatility, I'm finding that quite fine. So this one, possible double pump here. The thing I didn't like about this one was that we hadn't seen much momentum to the upside here. We'd had this push. Again, I drew this line here to just show like barely any headway to the upside. and then we have this push up. It doesn't make any headway. So I wasn't ready to jump in gung-ho on this one here, but I was interested in the fact that it pushed up, consolidated, and then broke out. So I was interested in that. This one was a much more hectic day. Also shows that even though there's not a lot of opportunities, sometimes you can take big advantage on one just by taking a little bit bigger profit. And so, I made about 8R on this one, only included about 4 or 5R for the stats. So sometimes I'll downplay the stats a little bit, whereas the actual potential is actually quite a bit higher, especially if you had got a little bit more out of a trade. 2.5 to 1 is kind of the minimum, remember? So I'm going to use that on most trades, but there are those ones that if you see it starting to really break, try to grab a little bit extra. Lots of notes on here, so I'll leave this one just kind of to go through. Again, here's another thing. I got out of this trade flat. Not a lot of momentum, but for the stats I said this would have been a full loss, so I included a negative 2.5. So actual results, and for the stats I kind of downplayed the stats here. Another day, pretty quiet. We had that one big opportunity, really nice double pump. Here again, it's a little bit choppier. If one, you can kind of see each one of these is about 5 pips. So 5, 10, maybe about 15 pips of movement in the last couple hours. That's what I watched for. But this breakdown here with a target near this prior low still provided, that target was near that low. We're still trading within the daily range. We're still allowing for that choppiness. We're not expecting some huge breakout or anything. So this was a really key trade to take. And then we can see I added a little bit extra to it, just thinking that if the price pulls to this low, it's probably going to take it out by at least a little bit. And then we also had the day low along this line here. So price still, even though this is kind of a mid-range trade on a low volatility day, lots of room for that. Even within the price action that had been taking place in the last few hours, that target was still within it. This one brought up some questions of where was the actual trigger. No triggers occurring here. If you know the rules of the rounded bottom, we need that shift up followed by a higher swing low followed by the transition to the upside. So here we had a slightly higher swing high, this bar relative to this one, pulls back, but then it goes right back to the low, so no trade there. This one is below. This little bar matches, I think it was about 0.1 pips away, so it moves up, matches that. We get this pullback and then the transition up. So this one was a valid trade. This one I did say was a little bit cleaner because this one, we kind of have the matching high, whereas this one we'd actually made a new swing high above this little green bar and above this area here, so the price had actually popped up. Throughout this entire area, we've been noticing this very slow, choppy selling momentum, basically no selling momentum coming out of this downtrend, so really dying off. So we're watching for that transition to the upside. Here we get the higher swing high, little pullback. As soon as it breaks above there, could have also entered that one, and that target would have been hit right near that high too. So either one of those entries would have been fine. And then, not a bad way to end off the week. Just pretty clean rounded top here. We can see the price pops up. These next couple pushes higher make barely any progress. Then we have this big shift to the downside, lower swing low. We have the pullback as it transitions to the downside. We're taking that short. We had a DP right after. I didn't include this in the stats because one of the requirements of a double pump is that we need to have clean price waves. And this is just kind of some sideways bars. So yes, it is there, and the target would have been right around here. So in that context, there was enough room for the price to hit the target, but it was a little bit choppy. So, if you took that one, good on you. But when you start taking these, sometimes they won't work out because, they're just kind of chopped. You want to see those like more clear price waves, sometimes like a bar or two in each direction. And then I got a little bit trapped here. This one, I don't know if I really liked it to begin with because we'd had this pretty big sell-off and then it was just this like tiny pattern. So I was kind of thinking like, is this little pattern here going to be enough to push the price up here? Ultimately, I decided it was, and I didn't consider this a mistake. But I was kind of questioning it in the sense that, it would have been nicer to maybe have a big push up here. So we have this low, push all the way up here, have a pullback, and that'd be a little bit bigger pattern. So again, those have their issues too. But this was a little bit smaller pattern. So I don't consider it a mistake, but considering this overall selling momentum, this whole pattern took place over maybe about 3-4 pips, is a little 3-4 pip wiggle rounded bottom enough to turn around this downtrend. Ultimately, it turned out that it wasn't that big. Same thing kind of happened over here. We have this selling momentum, a bit of transition up. We didn't get a trigger over here. This wasn't a rounded bottom here. But same sort of scenario where, when you have this little bit of movement following a big down move, be careful of trying to say, yeah, this is going to cause a big reversal to the upside. After a big move, the bottoming process is going to tend to be a little bit bigger based on the size of the move. Same with here, this tiny little bottoming pattern, not enough to reverse this big down move. So that's the week in review. My main focus was on that pre-trade routine, really making sure that I'm getting in the right headspace for the day ahead. I'm recording this on September 20th, so Monday of the following week after I wrote this. A little bit of a failure on that. I didn't dedicate a lot of time to my pre-trade routine. I just kind of jumped in on the Monday. So still something I need to work on. I kind of got out of the habit of doing it. So need to just redevelop that habit again. And that'll happen with trading. You'll do something really well for a while and then kind of think like, okay, I got this, and then you stop doing it and realize, yeah, I really should have been doing that all along, and you kind of got to retrain yourself. So that's kind of the trading process, trading journey is, kind of coming back to things that you've done before, back to simplifying processes and just making sure that you're always just really focusing on what you need to stay in the correct mind space, to trade the correct patterns, and to keep your head right, basically. So that is the week in review for this week. Until next week, happy trading.